What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining the Glass Horror channel, and today we are going to talk about found footage horror. We are going to rank my personal 10 best found footage horrors. Let's get started. So the found footage genre is a very polarizing one because there is a strong contingent that states they're a horrible subgenre, that it doesn't take any talent, doesn't take any skill, and it's not very scary and it's overdone. I've heard that from a bunch of people in different horror chats that I'm a part of. And to those people I say, we want originality. It doesn't get more original than these movies I'm about to mention now. Yes, every single genre can potentially get oversaturated. You look at the slashers from the 80s when Halloween and Friday the 13th first happened. There was a slew of slasher movies that you maybe not even heard of that happened the entire length of the 80s and into the early 90s because of the success of the ones you have heard of. That's just the nature of business in general. If you have something that works, go for it. Keep going to it and keep trying it until it doesn't work anymore. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. And to me, with found footage, there are things you can do different to make it unique, and it doesn't have to be the same of previous ones. Now, and that's what I'm going to get into with this list. So without further ado, let's get into my top 10 found footage horror movies. Now, before I start, I haven't seen every found footage movie. I haven't. There's a lot that I've missed. So if there's anything that I don't mention, let me know in the comments, and I will definitely find it, go back to it, and I'll review it for you at your suggestion. So, starting with number 10, I'm going to go with 2013's The Den. Okay, the unique thing about The Den is this is before Unfriended. Now, yes, this is after Paranormal Activity, this is after Blair Witch Project, things like that. So it's not the first one to the found footage. But as far as what I've seen, it is the first one to showcase a computer and a chat group as what the main spotlight is. It's not the found footage that we're used to as far as a moving camera, shaking camera, and chasing throughout some type of some place. It's more stationary than that. And one of the biggest drawbacks to found footage is when we use those shaky cams, it does get pretty hard to watch at times. The camera moving bob up and down. Some people that don't take that stuff well, it can make them sick. So to see something like this was refreshing. Now, not even withstanding that part, just the way it opens up, it just opens up straight to the opening up of a computer. And from the beginning, you feel like you're into this movie. So there was a girl, the main character is a girl that is trying to see the online habits of online chat goers. So she goes into various chats and strikes up conversations and just likes to see how people are online. And in doing so, stumbles across somebody being murdered. Now, we have all, at some point, I don't say we all have, but majority of us at some point have been on a chat of some sort. And just imagine cycling through and having that happen. And to make matters worse, she is now the next target of the killer. So it's an intense movie, and it's well thought out, and it used a branch of the found footage that hadn't been used before. And it gave rise to movies like Unfriended, which I think Unfriended was a worse version of The Den. I really like The Den a lot. So if you haven't seen that, when I saw it back in 2013, it was on Netflix. I'm not sure if it still is up there now, but if you have Netflix, look for it. It might still be there. So that's my number 10. I'm going to number 9. I'm going to go with House LLC. Now, this I just recently saw. It's one of the newer ones, at least to me. It's not a new movie, but it's one of the newer ones that I've seen. I think it came out in 2016. It seems almost obvious that why hasn't anyone done a found footage in a haunted house? And it seems like such an obvious thing, but this was done that way, and it was it worked perfectly. And now I'm seeing this at a point where I've seen a plethora of found footage movies, and I still was on the edge of my seat. It had some legitimately good scares. Now, I haven't seen 2 and 3. Apparently there's a 2 and a 3 to this. Haven't seen those. But for this one, it definitely moves into my top 10 because it's edge of your seat, had some legitimate scares. It is hard. Again, I liken back to this. It is hard to scare somebody and have a feeling of someone that has seen a ton of found footage, because like I said previously, it's easy to redo things in the genre, in that subgenre, and this one didn't. The only drawback to this is what I said didn't happen in The Den. The camera towards the end was very hard to see, and the shaking it took away from the movie. It's like I was invested, and then it gets to the to the climax of the movie, and I'm taken out by how the camera is. Another thing I loved about House LLC was it took the idea of the Blair Witch, where they would interview, local people. In this case, they're interviewing police that investigated. They're interviewing locals that just went. They were just curious about it. They're interviewing a bunch of different people as they're telling the story, reviewing the tape. So it wasn't just centered around the house or wherever they are, like a lot of found footage movies are. It takes you out to various places, and then the final climax, like not the climax of the tape you're watching, but the final climax of the actual movie, it makes you feel as if you're watching multiple movies in one. But it all ties together very, very well. So that's another reason that I really like that movie a lot. So that's definitely my number 9. Coming in number 8, Host. Host is new. It's new. One of the newest actually out movies on this list. It came in the peak of COVID, and they made it work. COVID wasn't too far away, guys. We know how 2020 was. 2020 was rough for a lot of people, and to those that, it was a bad year for a lot of people. And it was bad for movies as well, because a lot of movies just completely stopped. This movie took what we're all dealing with and made a great horror movie out of it by taking a Zoom app, the app we all use for our virtual, business, and making it into a horror movie. It was very well done. And the use of filters, like face filters that you see now, stuff like Snapchat and various other, streaming services and stuff like that, were used in this. And I can't stress enough how legitimate the scares were. And from the beginning, kind of similar to the Den, it opens up straight from a computer. So you're invested, and you're like, okay, this is unique. There's no credits rolling, there's no nothing. And that's one of the reasons why I like found footage. When you sit down and watch found footage, you're just into the movie. There is no brought to you by so and so, this, that, and all the credits that roll before that. It just goes movie right here. And I thought that was really good. I thought it was really strong and added to the movie. And then you take again the fact of where we are, we're all virtual at that point. Majority of us are virtual at that point. And then you see them using that virtual. So it's like the next time I'm on a Zoom, that could happen to me, Obviously, through when you watch the movie, if you don't do certain things, it won't happen. But still, it's just the concept and being there. This is definitely a must-watch found footage movie. It kind of feels, the time goes on further, and we get further removed from that year, and people get more and more back to normal. It can be a little dated. It still worked for what it was trying to convey. And I just watched it not too long ago, and I'm still just as into it then as I was as I was when I first saw it. So that's my number 8. Coming in at number 7, I'm gonna go with Rec, the Spanish horror movie that inspired Quarantine. Now, the good thing about what was so awesome about Rec was, up to that point, you've seen this, you've seen everything when it comes to zombies. Having a found footage zombie film was just great, and the way that they introduced the villain, the way they first had from the very first scene on, it was just intense. One of the things about found footage sometimes is you might get more story where it might kind of build up to something. This didn't. Once you saw what the villain we were dealing with was, it was just nonstop from that point forward. Just completely in your face, completely fast paced, and edge of your seat. Which is why, I mean, obviously it was so good, it inspired somebody over here in America to take that same concept and remake that. That I would put, Rec up against something like the original Ring or the original Grudge, because it had that much of an impact to carry over across to another country. If you have not seen Rec, this is a must see. I believe it's on Amazon Prime. Now, it is in Spanish, so it is subtitled, and there are some shaky cameras happening throughout. If that bothers you, it might not be the thing for you. But if you get past that, it is a very intense and a very enjoyable horror movie. So that's my number 7. Coming in at number 6, I'm gonna go with Creep. Now, if you want to base the success of a movie based on how accurate the title is to what you watch, you can't get much better with that one. The main villain, the main antagonist in this movie is creepy, but he's also lovable at the same time. It's the most WTF horror movie that there is, but it's in such a good way, because there's not a deep story to this by any means, and there's only only 2 characters in the entire movie. So it has to be kept along somehow. And just off of the acting and the presentation of the main antagonist alone is enough to keep you watching. It's disturbing because it's so, the main antagonist lulls you into a false sense of security so easily, just to turn into be this monster. And it's one of the best constructed found footage that I have seen. So that's definitely going to be my number 6. Coming in at number 5, I'm going to go with Grave Encounters. Now, Grave Encounters is on Amazon Prime. I think it's on a few other places as well. This one kind of flew under the radar, and I think the reason was, when it came out, a lot of people were on a hangover from Paranormal Activity. And when Paranormal Activity came out, it like shocked the whole horror genre to just keep on churning out these found footage movies. And in doing that, I think that people were a little bit over found footage movies when Grave Encounters came out. If you haven't seen it, please go back and watch it. What works for Grave Encounters is the setting. The setting being in an abandoned asylum, and it reminds me of like a found footage version of the House on Haunted Hill. That's the best way I can put it. So if you like the movie House on Haunted Hill, watch that and imagine a found footage version of that. That's how it was. And when it got intense, it was intense. Legitimate jump scares, unique jump scares, and that's coming in the midst of a found footage boom, right? With a whole bunch of different movies coming out in that subgenre, it still was able to find some uniqueness in it, and I think that the setting helped it a lot. There's a second one to this too. I don't think the second one is as good as the first one, but that's still also serviceable. There was something about the first one that I can't forget, and regardless of all the found footage movies that are out there, I'll still come back to this one and still find its own place and its own enjoyment while watching this. So that's my number 5. So these top 4 are hard to choose from, and especially 3 and 4. I don't know what order I like. I don't know if I'm set in this order yet, but I'm gonna just go with it. For number 4, I'm gonna go all the way back to the 80s. I think it's 1979 to be exact. Maybe it is 1980 on the nose. Cannibal Holocaust. To any of you guys that have been following my Facebook horror page or anything, or just know me personally, talk to me about horror, I mention Cannibal Holocaust a lot. It doesn't get the credit it deserves. Blair Witch, at least for America, is what most people think of when they think of the first found footage horror, even though it wasn't even here in America. A lot of people just think of it because it was the first one to be that level of blockbuster. Now, before the realism of Blair Witch, there was Cannibal Holocaust, an Italian horror movie that was so real and so believable that the director of the movie was brought up on charges and had to bring his cast and crew before a jury to validate that they were still alive, because that's how groundbreaking it was, and that's how legitimate his style of filmmaking was. Now, I will give you a warning to those that are animal advocates, animal lovers. You might want to skip past a few scenes here, because another thing that made this movie controversial is the animal kill. They kill live animals on screen. They're not props. They're not. This isn't makeup. It's actual live animals they kill on screen. I have, as you guys, I have to do this to you guys. I don't want anybody to watch this list and go check it out based off of this list and then be shocked, because it's not the easiest thing to see. I can tell you that. It's not the easiest thing to watch. But if you can get past that and you're looking for it, in your face, gritty, found footage horror movie that is unrelenting, and just, when you think of horror and you think of how brutal movies can be, this is one of the more brutal movies out there. It was banned in a multitude of countries for years before they were able to release a DVD. That's how intense it is. Eli Roth did a movie called The Green Inferno that is similar to Cannibal Holocaust. But even that is watered down in comparison to Cannibal Holocaust. So if you can check it out, I believe Cannibal Holocaust is also on it. No, I think it's on Netflix, or maybe it was at one point. I'll find out in the time of editing this video and put it down below where you can find the movie if you're interested. But that's my number 4. Coming in number 3, The Taking of Deborah Logan. I mean, I can't say enough about this movie, and I'm gonna tread really lightly here, because I didn't watch a trailer for this before I first saw it. I saw the cover, it looked interesting. I didn't even read the back, I didn't know anything about it. I just hit play and went for it. And it lulls you in. You feel like you're watching a movie about this particular thing, and then you realize, no, far from it. And I wish I can give more, but just trust me. The jump scares, the horror scenes, there's just so much in this movie that is just intense and very, very well done. And it definitely will leave a lasting impression when you see it. That's, for the ranking purposes, that's my number 3. For you guys, I don't want to go into too much about it from a plot perspective, because it's going to give away some of the impact. So if you haven't seen The Taking of Deborah Logan, find it. I think it's on Amazon as well. Find it, watch it ASAP. Come back here, leave a comment, and let me know what you thought. It's one of the best. Obviously, it's in the top 3 for me. That, to me, is the 3rd best found footage horror movie that I've ever seen. That's my number 3. Look, us as horror fans, where do you think I'm gonna go with the top 2? I feel like there's only 2 choices, right? So the only question is, which way do they rank? All right. Coming in at number 2, the Blair Witch Project. Now, I know some people that saw the Blair Witch Project live, or when it was at its peak in theaters. I know I just committed blasphemy by putting it number 2. I get it. I cannot understate the significance of that movie. And just I remember my sister went to go see it. I was too young to see it at the time. She came back from watching it and just told me about it. That's it. She just told me about it and I couldn't sleep. Like she just described it to me and I was like, they never found them? Like what? And like it could, because this is before the internet really took off. So when you saw something on screen, you couldn't Google to see what the actor is. You know what I mean? It wasn't as prevalent as it is today. So from a deep and new type of reaction, very few touched the world the way that Blair Witch did. Very few movies had people that afraid and that like, oh my gosh, these people are really like their marketing was amazing, and the way they protected their people from any kind of interactions, any kind of interviews was just brilliant. In the same way that Rodrigo Giugiaro, I believe, I'm sorry if I'm not mispronouncing his name, but did with Cannibal Holocaust, the same concept. This was great. And for me, going back, the only thing it suffers from is the shaky cam is kind of rough. And it's the lore of it years later has watered it down some. But I can't understate how impactful, how important, and how great the movie was when it first came out. The only reason it's number 2 is because it didn't have the residual effect the way this next movie did, which brings me to my number 1, Paranormal Activity. Okay. I was working at a morning job when this movie came out, so I got off relatively early. I remember my sister texted me and was like, hey, there's this new movie that's out. I don't know anything about it, but it seems interesting. And she said it's called Paranormal Activity. There were no trailers. There was no feedback. There was no buzz. The day she texted me was the day it was coming out. I'm at home at like 10 o'clock in the afternoon, and my next whatever I had to do was until later on in the day. I went on to AMC to find the first showing that I could. I think it was like 11 o'clock. I went to go see it. Now, when I'm watching it, I'm like, okay, this is different. This is interesting. The movie ends, and I'm like, okay, that was a good movie. Fast forward to the next night, me and a bunch of my friends went at night to go see it. So I'm watching it in the theater, and I'm like, and after it's over, I'm legitimately shook. I have no shame in admitting it. I was legitimately scared. That night, I couldn't go to sleep till I read my Bible a few times. I thought that Katie was in the room. Like it was that, and I was a grown man. I was a grown man at the time. So it's like for me, there's nothing. There can't be any other number 1. And well, I said it previously. After this movie came out, there was a groundswell of first-person camera, first-person or found footage horror movies. After that, I don't remember those same amount of movies coming out after Blair Witch. Blair Witch was the first to really make it big in America, but Paranormal Activity ran with that and made people realize, because Oren Peli made it for like $15,000. It had one location, I think 4 people in the entire movie. Yeah, I think 4 people in the entire movie. And it was terrifying. It was so subtly terrifying. Like, one of the parts for me is when, just as something as simple as when Katie's voice changed. I was like, what the? Like, That movie to this day is still terrifying. The crazy thing is, I think Paranormal Activity 3 is actually a scarier movie than Paranormal Activity 1. But Paranormal Activity 1 like broke me. It scared me so deeply that watching Paranormal Activity 3, even though I feel like had I saw that one first, it would have been more intense. It kind of like hardened me up to realize, okay, it's scary, yes, but it's not the big of a deal. Paranormal Activity 1 was just, it was too good for its own good, because no other found footage movie has ever come close to that. And I'm not gonna say it won't. A movie won't do that. I'm sure that's just how life and time goes. I'm sure something will equal that. But since then, there's been nothing, and there's been a ton of found footage horror movies, but there's not been anything to equal at least for me, the feeling that I got watching Paranormal Activity 1. So there you have it, guys. My top 10 found footage horror movies of all the movies that I've seen. Now, what did you guys think? Did you like the list? Did you not like the list? Did I miss something? If there's a found footage horror movie that you think is amazing that I've missed, leave a comment in the section below. Let me know what it is, and I'll definitely find it and I will review it here for you. If you're new here, this is the Glad's Horror Channel, the best horror channel here on YouTube, brought to you by the Glad's Horror Trilogy, a book written by myself that were turned into a movie. You can get the books at the glads.com website. It'll take you straight to Amazon where you can purchase the books. Also, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. Every subscription to this channel helps helps with the process of getting the movie completed. So I very much appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you guys next time.